IT Journeys and Convos podcast. My name is Olumide Ajala. Our guest today is John Ojurabesa. John is an IT professional based in Calgary, Alberta. John has over a decade of experience leading IT initiatives in areas of business transformation, process improvement, IT enterprise architecture. John is a leader in product management, project management, business analysis, and business systems design. Today, we'll be discussing business transformation. Join me as I welcome John Ojurabesa. Welcome, John. Thank you. It's good to have you here.
My pleasure, Olu. Thanks for having me.
All right, John, let's just jump right into it today. Let's get to meet you. Just give us a brief overview of yourself, your background, and especially your experience in business transformation. How did you get involved in business transformation? And what is it that motivates you to be um, someone that wants to speak to others about business transformation?
Thanks, Olu. Again, my pleasure to be here. I always think about titles as very constraining. So job titles, role titles can be quite limiting, especially if you have a lot of potentials as a person. So people would describe me as different things. Maybe a product management leader, a business transformation leader, a business analysis expert, a coach, a mentor, an entrepreneur. So different things that folks might describe me by or with. Um, so yes, I have a lot of experience, domain expertise, all of that in those spaces. So they'll be right if they choose to describe me by those titles. But I would say that I'm a multi-potentialite in that sense. Over the years, I've explored and created value in the spaces of business analysis, product management, business transformation, tech entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship at large, mentoring and leading people as well. For my background, I would say, I have a teeth really rooted deep in technology. My first degree is in computer science. By virtue of that, I delved into software engineering, database management, hardware, all of those interesting stuff, some networking. And over the years, I've been able to stand as a bridge between business and technology in different ways, helping organizations, enterprises understand how to fully leverage technology to create value for their target market.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. That's just a wonderful profile. I know you're just trying to understate it just a little bit, but that's good.
Yeah.
That's
And I know
good.
you had a
Thank
question
you so
about,
much, John.
yeah, you're welcome. I know you had a question also about transformation, essentially.
Mhm.
Maybe
Right.
if we get more into the definitions or the ideas around transformation, I'm able to talk about exactly how I got into it. But growing up, I always had an interest in understanding how value is created. I could give examples, but I remember at a point in time, my dad bought one of those electromagnetic tape players, and Olu, I'm sure you remember that as well, um, where you'd actually wind it up and then it plays the tape, the cassette tapes, and all of that. And I was like, how does this thing work? Because we have other tape players that you have to plug in into electrical sources or power sources, but this particular one, it doesn't work that way. How does it create value for us, playing tape for us, without being plugged in into power? There are no batteries and everything. So one day, I chose to unpack it with consequences. To my father's dismay, and of course with lots of interesting consequences coming behind it. But I've always been interested in understanding how value is created beyond just the process of creating software or hardware or products. I want to understand what exactly why are we doing this? And I think
Exactly.
that's one of the reasons I found myself in this space.
How would you define business transformation, and why would you say business transformation is crucial or critical for organizations in today's business landscape?
Good question. I like metaphors and stories a lot, even though I'm not the best storyteller. But There's a particular movie that comes to mind, The Pursuit of Happiness. Interesting side story. I've not watched it. I've read the summary of the storyline. But the idea of that perpetual pursuit of something better is very much innate in man or
Yep.
any establishment or institution that man creates, that there is something better out there, right? As long as there is that perpetual pursuit of something better, we will need change. And change is the very bedrock, is the core element of transformation. In fact, those two words can be used synonymously. So when we talk about business transformation, we're talking about that intentional, fundamental change of how a business, an entity, an enterprise operates in pursuit of the outcomes it desires to achieve or attain ultimately, right? It is saying we are trying to intentionally change how we create value to achieve our reason, our purpose for existence. So that is the most fundamental way or basic way I can explain it. Of course, it's not that simplistic or simple, right? But it's about change. It's about intentional change to how we operate, how we run things around our organization. There's that saying that it is folly to think that we can keep doing things the way we have always done it and expect different outcomes or results.
Now, can you share with us some examples of successful business transformation initiatives you've been in or that you've observed in your experience?
So maybe I should come back a bit to that definition because I made it very basic. So maybe we need to unpack it a little bit more in a sense that people can understand what it looks like within actual enterprises from day to day. Right. So when you have a business entity or enterprise, it's often set up to create some kind of value. All right. And for the business to get to the point where value can be created, they would likely establish what we call the value chain, which is basically like a chain, right? There are stages that are linked to each other where there are handoff of different levels of value being created until it is consumable, right? So organizations will have probably their vision statement, their mission statement, strategic anchor points that define who they are, right? Why they exist, what they want to pursue, why they should exist, right? Now, but that is very pie in the sky. To translate that to reality, they probably identify who they exist for and then how they want to create value for those entities that they exist to serve, right? They have a value proposition, right? They have the means of creating the value, right? If you go to a theater to go watch a movie, you sit in the theater, you see the stage, but you don't know that behind the stage, behind the scenes, there's a whole lot of things going on, happening, right? Orchestrations to ensure that value is created for the audience that has come to watch the stage plays and whatnot. All right. Now, if the theater says we want to increase the satisfaction levels of the audience coming to watch the stage plays or the shows, they would have to make some fundamental changes to what happens in the backstage. It might be right from when they select their cast or their costuming or the lighting different or the sequence of activities, various things in that space. So you can imagine the same happening for organizations. If you think about a restaurant, people know the kind of value they are coming for, right? It might just be primarily hunger. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of need. It might be beyond hunger at some point. It might be, yes, I want to feed my belly, but I also want some ambience that helps me to be in that space or that helps my prestige. So I go for fine dining. My definition of value is different from the other guy that just wants any kind of food to quench hunger or thirst. So that understanding of value will push organizations to make decisions as to how they create that value. That's why the definition of transformation, change has to happen to all those building blocks that we have to leverage to deliver the value desired by our target market. Now, I've witnessed transformation in different industries and in different spaces at different levels. I could give examples of, say, government agencies, right? Where, so let's say an agency that is uh, responsible for ensuring that there is water in our homes, right? And we're able to pay for the water we consume, billing, right? So they are able to ensure that if there are issues, they can quickly identify them and resolve them. So the point of value creation is very clear, right? If there are business drivers indicating that we need to do something to improve how that value is created, then we are pushed to undergo transformation. All right. In this kind of spaces, you would assume that there will be a clear vision as to why the transformation needs to happen and what success looks like, and all the different building blocks that need to be tweaked or changed, removed, enhanced, all of that to deliver value. But that is not always the case. I will come back to that later on. But I've witnessed transformation in services, financial services, in healthcare, in education, in different industries. And the very core fundamental principles are the same. Most of the challenges are also very similar. I'll pause right there. I could go into that flow.
All right. Amazing, 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 amazing. So you talk about transformation and you talk about value,
Yeah,
right? About value delivery, right? It's all about, changing how that value is being delivered,
yeah.
right? Changing what the value proposition in itself
Mm-hmm.
is, right? Amending or making changes to that entire value chain,
Yeah,
right? So in looking at all of this, where's the role of IT in this? Because now you're talking, it sounds more like strategy, more like more like business thinking, more like management stuff, right? But I know that a lot of people who'll be watching this, there are people in the IT industry. There are
mm,
people who are transitioning to the IT industry, moving from wherever they are, whatever domain of expertise, moving from there into the IT space. So what's the nexus between information technology and business transformation?
very good question. First, we should clarify that tech by itself is of no value. Tech is an enabler of value delivery. That's the first thing. Um, there are lots of fantastic technology ideas, concepts that have been around for maybe a decade that we are still yet to find mainstream use cases for. The technology is good, but we've not found how to utilize it for real value to be created. Uh, Look at the idea of cryptocurrency. Not until several years ago did we start to find some likely use cases. Even though the technology is brilliant, and I won't go into that right now. Right. Um, so talking about transformation, first there are stages of transformation. The first thing is the why, the strategy that is focusing. Right. Understanding exactly where we are pursuing these fundamental shifts or fundamental shifts in our direction and our reducing. What are the motivations? So in that space, we talk about the business drivers for change. All right. Business drivers for change will come from different areas. Technology can be a factor, yes, but it's not necessarily the primary factor in most of the cases. So the business drivers can come from the market you're serving. Your market is making demands for better quality of service, new experiences, or comparing one industry with another industry. So, for example, in the financial services space, we realize that your target market is not necessarily comparing one financial service provider with another financial service provider. You're comparing a financial service provider with like an Amazon, looking at the quality of client experience that Amazon has given them. And then the benchmark is then established. And then for financial services providers to then deliver the experience that is delightful and effective to these target markets, they have to then transform.
Mm.
All right. So in that lens, it's about the client experience. We have not even talked about or spoken about technology. It's about the client experience here. There could the other business drivers around the industry, competition, and there are lots of models in that space that we can speak to. One of the most common ones out there, the Porter's five forces. Thinking about all those factors that actually influence your likelihood of success. All right, competitors, right, substitutes, likelihood of new entrants or the ease of entrance in itself, supply, demand forces, whatever that looks like. So those can also put a business into action to undergo a change. Now, so understanding that, you start to, determine what is the ideal target state for us as a business. Why do we exist, and what should the next 10 years look like for us? What opportunities do we want to pursue? Which ones don't we want to pursue? Right? How do we want to be positioned in the market? So you formulate that. That is abstract. That is pen on paper. All right? Now, for you to start executing that, you need to actually start to decompose that strategy into what does this mean for value creation? In this case, client experience primarily. What does the client journey look like if we are going to be able to deliver this value that we seek to deliver, or that our market seeks for us to deliver to them, right? So what are the stages of that journey for that client? What will be the goals that the client has in each stage of their journey? So for example, from interest to service delivery, let's say, right? And then what are the touch points this client will likely have with our organization, right? And then you start to think about processes. Of course, you think about capabilities. What abilities should we have? Like in the case of the theater example, the theater must have people in place who know how to match colors for costumes. So that's an ability that the theater has in order for it to deliver value to its audience. So you think about that. So in our destination, our target state, our ideal state, or the to be state as it's called, you need to understand what that looks like from different lenses of perspective. From the lens of the client, right? From the lens of our organization, capabilities, processes. At the end of the day, you come to technology, definitely, because technology enables those capabilities, right? Opportunities for automation and whatnot. So by the time we land on technology, we already see how that technology is enabling the value for that client experience to be ideal or optimal. We don't just have a technology and say, well, this technology is fantastic. How can we use it? Necessarily. It makes sense, yeah? So by the time, for example, I have a laundry business, and I'm already thinking of what does the client journey look like? Oh, Olumide is a busy bachelor, right? He has a very busy lifestyle. He makes a lot of money. He likes to look sharp and good all the time. So that means I understand my target market, right? And there are a lot of tools out there like the empathy map that helps you get into the mind of your persona or the sample for that target market. All right. So we go through a lot of all those interesting work that does not even yet have to do with technology. It's about the client experience. On the basis of that understanding, we can come back to thinking about, okay, our business architecture, which is basically how all these building blocks, including client experience, come together to work as a whole to form the unit for value creation. All right. Now, so your business architecture, as you're thinking through all of those lenses I mentioned, Okay, we know what a client journey used to be like right now. We know what a client touch points should look like. What does that mean from a process perspective? The series and sequence of activities that must happen for us to actually create value. What are the business policies and rules that will guide how we make choices at each junction of the client journey and all the processes? What kind of data would we require? How do we use the data? And then org structure can also come up. What kind of organizational model do we need? Roles, job architecture, all of those interesting things come together. How does technology then enable that mix? Right? Now, in talking to your business architecture, you would also be then forced to think about your operating model, because that's what it is. The fusion of all those things, all those elements, all those components coming together. It's just like you have a recipe, right? 1 ounce of sugar, 2 ounces of flour, 1 ounce of salt, pepper, coming together to make something whole. I won't just go and start chewing on raw flour. That's not how value is created, right? So technology by itself is really nothing without it being part of that mix. Again, I'm going to pause. There's so much we can get into that.
It's something I was pondering just yesterday night about, the business part. When it says business analysis, it says business analyst, right? Uh, Today we see business analysis has been reduced to elicitation and requirements documentation,
Mm-hmm.
right? We've seen that's what everybody going to the boot camps, that's what we learn. Hey, elicitation, hey, collaboration, hey,
Yeah.
um, requirements documentation,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is what a project team looks like. This is a waterfall, this is agile, and then boom,
Right.
business analyst is born, right? And
Goodness. Yeah.
this is more for the listeners. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
for you to get a lot of things, right? John
Yeah.
has said a lot of things, spoken about things like Porter's five forces, things like your SIPOC, process design, business architecture, even business modeling, right? So you need to look at the types of business you're in, to understand the kind of frameworks that exist in those landscapes, right? You talk about things like, the ETOM model, for instance, right? Which, you want to like understand what these models are, understand how it fits
Yeah.
into your industry. You want to be able to study things like the APQC framework, right? Uh, and be able to get and understand these things. And I tell people, right, that, something like when you're in business analysis, you find that the scope of what business analysis is actually really, really, really wide.
It's
And
broad.
a
Yeah.
good business analyst is someone who has gone through the gamut of all these things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm glad I'm hearing you mention this.
Absolutely. I have a very strong bias towards the domain of business analysis. And I can share my story about business analysis some other time, but it's a domain that I found, not a domain that I heard about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a domain
Yep.
that I knew that there has to be something like this, and I went looking for it. And I can speak to that more later on. So, what I can say is that a lot of people have significantly reduced the idea of what business analysis is.